When you buy LG, you get so much more than just an appliance. You get more done, more cost savings, more peace of mind, and more control. Because LG appliances are designed to do more. Like washers and dryers with AI tech to take out the guesswork. Refrigerators that fit in tight spaces and keep food fresher, longer. Or ranges with precise induction cooking and easy cleanup built in. All with the style you want and reliability you can count on. So you can get more from your home every day. LG appliances, so much more. Make life easier with LG. See the latest models and savings now at LG.com. When you buy LG, you get so much more than just an appliance. You get more done, more cost savings, more peace of mind, and more control. Because LG appliances are designed to do more. Like washers and dryers with AI tech to take out the guesswork. Refrigerators that fit in tight spaces and keep food fresher, longer. Or ranges with precise induction cooking and easy cleanup built in. All with the style you want and reliability you can count on. So you can get more from your home every day. LG appliances, so much more. Make life easier with LG. See the latest models and savings now at LG.com.
Oh, what are you doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Either you are, or I'll be skipping rope with your entrails. Ta-ta.
This podcast is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Robots Radio. Games, lore, stories, community. Just press play. Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, the podcast where we explore the amazing universe of the Elder Scrolls. Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Lotus of Doom, my wonderful co-host. And
Hello.
Lotus, welcome back to the show, man. How's it going?
Good. I was just talking in the pre-show that for some reason, I think I might have been around a little too much smoke pre-show because, I keep drinking water to try to balance out. I have that weird, sort of hoarseness that I need to keep clearing. So hopefully that doesn't cause a problem.
I think, if anything, it's just sexier and people are just going to have to hold back because you are a married man.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I think the problem is I don't get the sexy Phoebe voice, weird Friends reference for anybody over 38. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I think I was around too many. There's this smoked drink in this place that we were at, and there was a lot of smoke. And it's the end of summer, beginning of fall, so there's a lot of smoke in my area. Being in New England, there's a lot of campfires and stuff like that, and I feel like it's messed up my vocal.
It's all just pollution. So welcome back to the show. We're talking about smoke and how it affects your when you speak.
You want to live in Skyrim because that's where I live.
Actually, today we are diving into another one of these Daedra creatures, but we decided instead of doing multiple Daedra creatures today, that this one was interesting enough to give its own episode. If you've played through the Shivering Isles, then chances are you've run into the Golden Saints and the Dark Seducers, but we're specifically focusing more on the Golden Saints. Some Dark Seducer stuff is going to come up as well, but we want to focus on those.
We've kind of touched on the Seducers already. So we can reference that again. But we've kind of tangentially that will be related because it's kind of two sides of the same coin type of deal. Right. So we thought it would be a good idea to dig a little bit more deeply into them. And specifically, they're called the Aureal or Aureals. And there's a lot here. So we're going to give it the whole episode. This one might be a little more involved than some of the others, which we can cover in about 10 minutes.
Right. Some of the others
This
are like
one doesn't
little
really
tiny.
work with that quite so easily.
Right. So here, let's dig into it. A lot of the information that we have is coming from the UESP or documents that we can read on the UESP that come directly from the games. So as much of this is as accurate as we can get it. And it says here in the introduction section of the part about Aureal, or Golden Saints, that they are a Daedric race of golden-skinned, winged humanoids with cat-like eyes and elven-esque styled hair. You know, if you were to describe this to somebody, they'd be like, "What? Wait, what?" So here, we're going to put a picture up on the screen. This is what they look like. This is a number of different images of them from different locations. There's initially you could come across them in Morrowind, and then mostly in the Shivering Isles, and then ESO. And they are, I mean, they look like these golden, almost angelic, winged on their helmets kind of knights. And they're very fancy looking. They've got lots of armor, different kinds of weapons.
Gives a very high elven vibe.
Yes, almost like if you dressed up a high elf in fancy golden armor, this is kind of what you would get. You can tell the men apart from the women because the women have less armor covering the tops of their chests, or
because the
cleavage, because the 90s.
I was going to say the tactical midriff as well. You always have to have that.
Yeah, they just run hotter, so they need like an air vent there in order to release the heat. That's why it's for that reason.
Sure, that's a fine little reason.
Yeah, but I find it kind of ironic because when it comes to the Golden Saints and the way that they work as a society, they are matriarchal. This is not a patriarchal society where you have like the men going, "Oh, the women have to wear more scantily clad clothing because we, the men, are in charge." It's not that sort of thing. So seemingly they choose to dress like this because...
Yeah, I was going to say the male version of the Golden Saints is actually less common. Same way with the seducers. Dark Seducers, it's less common, at least in game, that you run into male versions of Dark Seducers. Kind of similar deal when it comes to Golden Saints. Yeah,
the women are the ones who are in charge of this society, which is interesting. There's a lot of these, I don't know, intricacies about them that make them kind of stand out and kind of make you wonder about what's actually going on here. So let's go a little bit deeper. The name Golden Saints themselves was given to them by, and it says here in the text on the UASP, lesser beings. What that means is mortals, because they are Daedra. They believe they are above all the mortal races, and the mortals are lesser than them. And they treat them like that. And you would think that with a group called Golden Saints that they would be saintly and held to a higher moral standard and maybe treat people in a very specific way. But they don't. They are very cutthroat. They are quick to anger. They can be very cruel and punishing. And like many Daedric races, they don't give a crap about mortals whatsoever, except for some very specific circumstances that come about in some of the quest lines and things that happen in the games. So pretty brutal group, especially for being a group that's matriarchal, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and general, I guess, like from terms of like, I don't know how to put the strength or power in terms of tiers of like, the idea is to relate it to souls. So like the strength level of these Daedra are actually pretty strong. So like, this isn't like
9,000, like their power level hit 9,000 and then Vegeta
I was trying to avoid that. So perfect. I was trying to avoid that, but yes, so one of my earliest memories of these, because originally, at least with Morrowind, there wasn't really a lot explained about these creatures. And one of the things about Golden Saints is because they are considerably higher level Daedra, when you capture them in game in a soul gem, they are actually grand souls. So they are kind of like top of the line, for lack of a better term for this. These creatures are pretty advanced in terms of like, we've talked about scamps and stuff like that, or Daedrats, where they're like, you know, Dramoras and stuff like that. These are almost like the elite guard, I guess, would be a good way of putting it, with a lot of Daedric realms, because Daedra switch. It's not necessarily just one alliance.
Yeah, they're mostly tied to Sheogorath, but
they are.
But like
very
other
frequently.
types of Daedra, like it kind of comes down to who they want to work for in some cases.
Sure, it gives
or
a
who
very
they're
mercenary
summoned
vibe.
by, or
Yep,
some of that
for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, their terms of strength and power in game, at least, is incredibly high compared to some of the other enemies, because you do fight them. They're usually not passive, except in like the Shivering Isles. They're pretty passive because they're guards. Again, tie into Sheogorath. But yeah, they're pretty intimidating until you are a high level in game. You can't just usually go up and just wreck house on a golden saint. It's not generally going to work like that.
Yeah, it seems that in general, the more humanoid the Daedra are, the more formidable they are as an enemy to encounter, because they're intelligent, they wield weapons, they wield magic, those kinds of things. So these are up at the top of the list of like formidable enemies if you come across them, and they will treat you like that unless they are, told not to by Sheogorath in the Shivering Isles, because they're
and the
working
Shivering
for
Isles
him.
Expansion, they tend to be guards, so it's like, okay, well, they're not just going to mug you for no reason. But if you're a Morrowind and you bump into them, they'll mess you up.
Yeah. So a little bit more on them. They are, as we mentioned before, a matriarchal society. They tend to look down upon all males of their own species, and males of other species tend to be considered lesser. Even the male golden saints consider themselves and other males to be lesser. So it's part of society to just see yourself, if you are a male, being lesser than the female golden saints around you. The Aureal, which is what they're also known as, have a warrior-like caste system with an 8-tier hierarchy ascending from lowest to highest rank as follows. So lowest to highest: Aurin, Aridel, Armok, Armakel, Arig, Malarig, Pelarig, and Armazel. Try to memorize that and say that 10 times fast.
I objectively won't do that.
Now, they make up one half of Sheogorath's army when you go to the Shivering Isles. That was the expansion for Oblivion.
Yep.
And the others are the Dark Seducers, or the Mazkin, which they call themselves. So each of these groups call themselves the Aureal or the Mazkin. It's only to other beings that they're known as Golden Saints or Dark Seducers. And these two groups have a rivalry. Each believe that they are Sheogorath's favored group or favored people, which seems like it was probably something that was a seed that was planted directly by Sheogorath, not by accident.
Yeah,
I would imagine
that does not seem coincidental. Like, oh, it just happened that way. That seems very intentional.
Yeah. Now, the Aureal are heavily linked to mania. And mania and dementia are the two different parts of the Shivering Isles. And I find this part particularly interesting because mania is a reference to bipolar. Like if you suffer from a bipolar disease or whatever the actual term is.
Yeah, like the literal, psychological.
Right.
Not even like defect.
It's a mental illness. It's a mental illness.
Psychological challenge.
Right.
Type of deal that a lot of people have to kind of balance out and work with. And so in bipolar, if you are bipolar, then you suffer most of the time. You are in a depressive state, and on occasion, and sometimes this can happen a few times a year. Sometimes it's a little bit more common. You go into what is called a manic state. You go into mania, and those two states separate themselves. One is depressive, where you feel less motivated, you have a hard time paying attention, doing things like this. But when you switch over to a manic state, you all of a sudden become hyper productive, way more energetic, and it's like you never quite land in the middle where most people probably operate. Only both extremes. Very rarely that you ever hit that medium in the middle.
Right, exactly. And that is a wonderful description of Sheogorath going between his,
for sure,
like his, and in the Shivering Isles, it's called mania and dementia. So he goes from being more demented to more manic to more demented to more manic. He goes back and forth. And so each of these groups kind of lend themselves on one side or the other. Now, the other detail about this is the demented sainted side, or the more depressive side, are the dark seducers. They wear the dark outfits. Right. They look more subdued. And on the manic side are the golden saints, who look like hyper bright because of the golden appearance and all of that. So all of this tracks and connects together for what is in effect a real world psychological condition, just kind of made manifest in Sheogorath and his realm.
Yeah, Sheogorath very much embodies the idea of this psychological phenomenon. And when you actually look at it, there's a lot of things. Again, if you've never played the Shivering Isles, I strongly recommend it because it is a fantastic DLC. Honestly, it's a DLC that's better than a lot of games I've played.
Yeah. And there's rumor because of all the leaked documents that they're working on
Yeah, there was supposed to be a release of a remaster already
for Oblivion,
based on all those Xbox or Microsoft leaked documents. So, and worst case scenario, that doesn't happen, and we still have Skyblivion on the horizon as well.
Right. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I kind of feel bad for the team, but I also wonder if one version is going to be better if you want to do certain things, and another version is going to be better if you want to do other things.
It's the same way that like the vanilla version of a game that is released is great, and so many people love it, and then so many more people love what the modded community does. So Rebel Eyes and his team, regardless if this is a remaster, and he actually posted on it that it was just like, yeah, this is super exciting. Like, this isn't a bad thing for us doing Skyblivion. Like, this is still great because it's like so many people can experience Oblivion for the first time.
Yeah.
And then if they're on the PC, they can experience like what it looks like in our vision. So it's, they tie in.
They both seem like they're going to be worth playing through. One of them is going to be more true to the original. One of them is going to be a little bit more updated with Skyrim.
Skyblivion is probably going to be a little fancier if I'm just going to make it get. Yeah. But one thing that is interesting about the bipolar thing that you had mentioned with the, in this case, mania and dementia, if you actually look at Sheogorath himself, and if you play the Shivering Isles, the way everything is cut, it is very split. So when you go into the like castle, like main hall, the rug is split down the middle.
Yeah.
If you ever look at Sheogorath's outfit, you'll notice it's cut down the middle, and one side is one color pattern, one side is another color pattern. It's very much a thing that they really, it's subtle until you know it's there, and then it's very apparent how often it's brought up. And the Golden Saints, like you had mentioned, embody the mania version of it, the extravagant version, whereas the Dark Seducers are obviously the dementia version, or the depressive state type of thing. So they're much darker, more subdued and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to see that dichotomy literally right next to each other all the time. But unless you look for it, it just kind of looks like, oh, okay, whatever. There's two types of things. There's the Dark Seducers and there's the Golden Saints. Yeah, whatever.
Right. Now, we also get in that whole setup, we have a scenario you play through, which kind of explains a little bit about what happens to the souls of these Daedra and how they're brought back into their bodies and that kind of thing.
Sure.
It says here in the wiki, their sacred home is Brelach, which lies in the northern part of Mania, and Brelach, maybe it says CH at the end, so could be either.
Within it, to pronounce. Sure.
Within it, the wellspring of the Aureal serves as a beacon to guide the souls of the saints lost in the void back to the Shivering Isles. Little is known of their chaotic creatia, but their wellspring flows with a golden liquid fitting of the saints. Some golden saints are said to reside in the colored rooms. So before it gets to the colored rooms part, it talks about how their chaotic creation, this idea that they are killed, their souls go back to the void, which is that Sithis sort of whatever that's out there. We've talked about this on multiple occasions.
They don't really die.
And so they don't die. So this wellspring draws their souls back to the Shivering Isles, and then they are rebodied and they, come back. And this is kind of one of the processes, and at least one of the more specific views into the process that we see for the way Daedra are kind of eternal. They even though you kill them, they go back to the void and then they come back.
Right.
And in this case, they are rebodied as golden
it's more
saints
displacing
again.
them than it is to kill them.
Right. So we get a little bit of a glimpse of that, which is pretty cool. There's also this other section. Amber that grows in the root systems of the Shivering Isles is linked to the Aureal, which may be used to summon or even bind them. The most powerful among the Aureal require the usage of the rare occurring Sheogorath-shaped amber. Sheogorath-shaped amber.
Shaped amber. Perfect.
Yeah, their hearts have modest magical properties. Just another little note here at the end. So yeah, this all plays into the stuff that you do in that expansion and all of that. We're also told that they, as a symbol of their devotion to Sheogorath, the Aureal engrave their golden teeth with 3 faces of madness, a symbol for Sheogorath's office, and the average saint is 6 feet tall. So they're fairly tall. Taller than the average human, at least in our world.
They're basically me.
They all look like you. Most of them are female, though.
They're all me. Apparently, they're just. But the interesting thing about that, like, so the tooth thing is kind of weird, but like the 3 face thing is kind of interesting because, again, Sheogorath's staff, the Wabbajack, has the 3 face thing. And this is going to be kind of a deep cut where it gets sort of past lore that super matters anymore, but it's worth noting. If you scale back all the way to Arena, before things were super established, there was this order of monks, and when you're going around their temple, it had this weird, it's almost like the precursor for what the Wabbajack's symbol or the entrance to the Shivering Isles. It kind of became Sheogorath's thing of the 3 faces, and it looks like they're screaming. Essentially. They were on pillars and like platforms and stuff like that. There were these the graphics limited what they were allowed to show back in Arena.
Right, yeah,
obviously.
all 12 pixels kind of looked like a face.
Potato. Yeah, so
nice.
But this has been like a symbol that's kind of lasted for quite a while. The 3-faced like image, and it's interesting because that ties very much into obviously the Golden Saints, and then the direct connection to Sheogorath himself.
Yeah, so I have to wonder what Sheogorath promised these 2 groups, the Golden Saints and the Dark Seducers, that has them so feverishly working for them to the point where they are carving faces into their teeth. And
that's a little more extreme than just like, hey, I work for. I don't know.
Right. This is the guy that pays the bills. This is so we just work for him.
Right. That's like I work for Amazon and got a giant like Amazon tattoo on my chest or something. It's like, whoa, that's above and beyond just working where you work.
Yeah.
This is like dedication to it. So like we've mentioned before that a lot of the Daedra tend to kind of shift allegiances. Now they have primary allegiances. The Skadafin for, oh my God, the one with deals. Why am I spacing on the name?
I don't know. That's not coming.
His really obnoxious voice in Redguard. Oh my God, why am I spacing?
Clavicus Vile?
Thank you. People are like screaming at their TV or their speakers right now. Thank you. Clavicus Vile. Their allegiance is to Clavicus Vile, but it's like, it's not weird to see they happen to have an alliance with someone else type of thing. You'll see Atronachs tend to go toward one, but then they're somewhere else. The Golden Saints really have a strong tie.
It's cultish. It's cultish.
It's a little cultish. If you're chiseling your teeth, you're a little past like normal levels of dedication.
Yeah. Even if you're a Daedric creature, like that's still
correct.
I mean, you're going a little bit above and beyond for that. So
yeah,
I don't know if he pays them real good or probably has promised them all sorts of things that aren't actually true, and then keeps them in line by having them.
They get full shirts instead of half shirts.
Keeps them in line by having the conflict between them and the Dark Seducers, and so they never.
Sure.
They're so busy fighting to each other that they don't realize the Sheogorath's playing both of them. Like
maybe
that sort of thing.
Yeah,
might be. But there's also this quest line that shows up in ESO where where, this is interesting. Originally summoned to take the place of a mother who died in childbirth, a golden saint functioned as the mother figure of a young Malker Valos. After Malker's father died in a mage duel, the golden saint was no longer bound to the conjuration spell. Malker's father conjured the golden saint the way you can many Daedra to just be there and work for him. But then this golden saint took on a motherly job looking over this mortal. And then this plays out in a quest line where Malker is like brought back with the saint who like continues to look over him even though he's immortal. And that's interesting. That's some wacky stuff. That's super fun because it breaks the way that's normally would play out with golden saints. So that's a fun thing to look into if you want to dive into that in ESO. But we have we're going to have to take our mid break and go thank our patrons. But we have this document called Saints and Seducers, which shows up in the Shivering Isles and then in Skyrim. Yeah. And it has some very interesting perspectives on both the Golden Saints and the Dark Seducers. So we're going to read that when we get back. Don't go anywhere. We got to go thank our patrons.
It's cozy season, and nothing compares to wrapping yourself in a Minky Couture blanket. Luxuriously soft, perfectly warm, thoughtfully made. From movie nights to chilly mornings, Minky Couture turns everyday moments into pure comfort. Once you feel it, you'll understand why it's called the original best blanket ever. Visit minkycouture.com or a store near you and make this cozy season your softest one yet.
This is Miss Morlock, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, we're back. This is the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons, including our newest patron, Alyssa N. Welcome to the Patreon. Thank you for joining us. And we have to shout out our Daedric princes, Kira C. and Sheogorath Sweet Roll, and big shout outs to all 132 of our current patrons. Wow. You guys make this possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. And if you are one of our Dragonborn or Daedric princes or tier 4 or higher patrons, then you can join us next week for our patron chat because it's coming up 1 week of this recording today. This is on Thursday night. It will be Thursday the 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we look forward to hanging out with all of you. And we haven't decided on topic yet, so chime in on the Discord if you have some ideas, things that...
We usually decide day of.
Yeah, usually 24 hours before the episode. Yeah. People are a little bit more like, oh, it's coming up, we're ready to talk about it. So then it kind of... But you can always throw some ideas out ahead of time and kind of get ahead of the suggestion thing, and then everybody votes and we go with the conversation. So that's coming up. If you want to be part of that or anything else, ad-free episodes, getting t-shirts and stickers and all sorts of fun things, then go to patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Also, if you'd like to help us out with a review on Apple Podcasts, you can do that as well. 5-star reviews will get read out in the future. You can also rate the show on Spotify. You can tell your friends. You can tell your mom. You can get your mom to start playing ESO. She's going to love it. I have a feeling she's really into that.
I mean, my mom has zero idea what the hell is going on in the Elder Scrolls, but she really likes the music.
There you go. You can get her to just turn the game on and listen to the music.
Yeah.
And then she can listen to this podcast when she's not playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. And then the transition is natural.
Yeah, it'll just totally work out. It'll be fine. But thank you, everybody, for your support. Let's move on with the rest of the show.
You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, dear child of cities. That is why the Night Mother loves you.
All right. You ready for this reading, Lotus?
I am.
And feel free to chime in after every few paragraphs or so, sure, because there's going to be things that we can talk about. This is called Saints and Seducers by Andache. There's a CHE at the end. Again, not sure how to pronounce that.
I would chime in with the correct way to say that, except I can't correct you.
Yeah, again, don't know. And Doce Marie, I think, is the name. Sentinels of the Isles, a treatise on Golden Saint / Dark Seducer culture and history within the Shivering Isles. Now, this game came out with this book first showed up during the Shivering Isles expansion. Of course, has been in games since then. It starts off with an author's note. This volume attempts to catalog and analyze known, suspected, and rumored facts about the two races that serve to maintain order within the Shivering Isles. It is by no means intended to serve as the authoritative work on the matter. Rather, it is a personal effort on the part of the author to better understand these unique creatures. All right. Main point number 1. In the service of the Lord. In the service of the Lord. I feel like you have to say it like that.
Yeah, very much so.
It is beyond the scope of this work to determine the origins of the Golden Saints and Dark Seducers. They are Daedra, and as such, their base existence is a mystery to those mortal born. The commonly held belief that all Daedra are incapable of creation suggests that even Lord Sheogorath himself is not responsible for the genesis of these races. Yet, it is worth noting that the Prince of Madness has motives and powers that none may guess. To attempt to do so would only confuse the subject further, as would many things get confused when it comes to Sheogorath.
Stupid little humans.
It is enough, then, to see that they exist and know that it is so. Beyond this knowledge, however, it is curious that the Saints and Seducers serve Lord Sheogorath unerringly. And I've noted this before. It's a little bit weird. These two groups tied to Sheogorath, right?
Yeah.
This allegiance is ultimate and eternal from all indications, but its source is unknown. Could it be that they themselves were tricked into service by the mad god, or do they simply ally themselves with the greatest power in their realm? Previous literary works suggest that Daedra choose to serve their masters so they might find protection and safe harbor. Clearly, the Saints and Seducers have this in the Shivering Isles. Indeed, they have fortresses which few not of their race are allowed to enter. They have power in the realm, acting as guardians of those who serve Lord Sheogorath. Constantly, they vie for the favor of our Lord, fighting any who oppose him, and at times even each other. It is reasonable to assume, then, that they have made a willing choice to take up their role in the Isles. So it seems like they have not been summoned there according to this, but they have chosen to be there and chosen this allegiance.
Right. So the connection there is still pretty strong. Like there's some tie that pulls them to the Shivering Isles, to Sheogorath himself. But that tie isn't really explained or understood. So the idea of them being tricked into it is kind of interesting. But for the most part, yeah, they're just strongly linked, I guess would be the best way to explain it, to Sheogorath, because the other situation is you will see them other places that are not Sheogorath related, but it's just less common. And it seems like the tie to Sheogorath is much stronger. Right.
So this next section goes into the character and society. I'm going to just read little bits of this because it gets pretty long. And we've some of it will just basically recap some of the stuff we've already talked about. The first paragraph says, the immediate image called to mind when hearing the name Golden Saint suggests an angelic figure, elegant and benevolent. It is ironic, then, that while the Golden Saints embody this image in form, their behavior is in stark contrast to it. The Saints are a proud, arrogant race, quick to anger and cruel in their punishment. There is no question that they view all of the Isles as inferior and make no effort to hide this in their interactions. It also talks about the Dark Seducers and how they kind of look like what you would imagine for a Dark Seducer to look like, and they view mortals as lesser races and all of that. This section down at the bottom, though, is interesting too. It says other information can be gathered from observation. It is easy to see that the two groups are strongly militaristic in their societal structure. One's strength and discipline determines one place in society. Military commanders, for example, are revered by their subordinates, while with further observation, a second distinction becomes apparent. Both societies are matriarchal in nature. And then it goes on to talk about a lot of the same stuff we talked about there. So, but not only are they matriarchal, they're also militaristic, which is a combination that is rarely seen. It's maybe Amazonian in our own world, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Again, it's kind of a unique structure that they're built around.
It's uncommon.
Yeah, that's really it. It's just uncommon, but again, it seems like in the grand scheme of things, they're also a little more imposing than some of the other groups. Golden Saints have long been kind of don't screw with that. Like, make
Right.
sure you're of appropriate level. I mean, this is from a very gameplay perspective thing, but it's like when you get to Golden Saint level difficulty, it's like that's just shy of end game with a lot of stuff in terms of the gamey portion of it. So like, obviously it's considered a hierarchy that actually works because it has a strength to it. Throughout the series, like all the way back to Morrowind, honestly.
These are tough enemies. They are trained. They are skilled. They are equipped. Yeah.
Right. This is considered like, okay, well, you need to be geared for this. You can't just bumble into this the same way you can against many other things, even like Daedroths and stuff like that. This is like the higher tier quality enemy. And their structure seems to just be like, yeah, no, it breeds this higher tier difficulty when it comes to like a gameplay perspective.
Right. And this next section kind of reinforces that a little bit. It's called Conflict and Conquest. Any resident of the Shivering Isles can confirm that it is unwise to provoke the Golden Saints and Dark Seducers. They thrive on conflict and warfare and are quick to punish any and all who disobey. Acting in their capacity as guardians of the realm does not satisfy them, however, and so they often engage in combat with one another, despite being garrisoned in areas where they are unlikely to interact. It is possible that this is more than an outlet for aggressive behavior. Repeated engagements between the two races may be of an effort to gain favor with Lord Sheogorath. We're talking about like that whole like competing against each other.
Sure, like
for him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If one can triumph over the other, it would prove superiority and a right to gain sole control over the realm. The Battle of Kylarn is of particular interest, as both sides have been locked in combat with no hope of resolution for time beyond memory. Does this combat serve to sharpen the skills of the two sides? Maybe that's part of why they're so dangerous as enemies to fight. Or weaken them when they could be directed elsewhere. If the conflict cannot be resolved, why then does Lord Sheogorath not step in and settle it himself? My guess is that he wants them to keep fighting each other so they don't rebel against him.
Yeah, that would be my guess as well. It's almost like a form of distraction. Like, well, you can't pay attention to this if you're busy fighting each other.
Right. And they're eternal. So more practice battling and fighting each other in the long run pays off.
Out of it. They literally aren't going to.
Right. So. They're just going to become better and better at fighting over time, which makes them a better army for him. So that makes sense too. This last section is titled Religion and Ceremony. Little is known about the private customs of the Golden Saints and Dark Seducers. They are reclusive when it comes to matters specific to their race, particularly regarding the mysterious process by which they return to the realm in the unlikely event of their death, which we talked about a little bit with the whole their souls coming back from the void thing. It is common knowledge that Golden Saints and Dark Seducers as Daedra cannot be killed. The animus of the Daedra is cast back into the darkness of oblivion. And I love reading this stuff because it gives us slight insights every time you read one of these things into the specific wording that is used and what that may actually mean. So it says the animus of the Daedra, that's kind of like their soul, is cast back into the darkness of oblivion. Back to, as in that was the original source of their power. Is the darkness of oblivion with a capital O, which doesn't mean a specific realm. It's probably synonymous with the void.
Right. It's just oblivion, i.e. outside the plane of like
Mundus. Yeah. And can return to the realm to take form once more. But reports of the time it takes for a Daedra to return to the realm from the waters of oblivion, the void, are anecdotal and inconclusive. The process by which they return remains shrouded in mystery. Based on behavior patterns and strength of numbers, it can be deduced that the stronghold for each race plays some major part in this process. And so this is hinting at some of the stuff you can come across with the whole finding out how they get rebodied and all of that.
Right. And one thing to note, which I won't go too deep into, but it is something worth noting. It's originally, it was one of those things because the lore has shifted over the years because, again, the Elder Scrolls isn't written by one person. It's a team of people.
Yeah.
And it's not even always the same group of people. Some people who were original writers have nothing to do with the project anymore because it's a very long-standing series.
Right. Sometimes people get rehired back, or they move on to one project and they come back and they do something else. Yeah.
Or sometimes, which is what we're kind of going to touch on real quick without going too in depth on it. Sometimes a new group of writers picks up on something that has kind of been not acknowledged for a while. And this idea of like going to the void, being kind of reformed and brought back is something that was touched on in the Elder Scrolls Legend Battlespire, which again, all 12 of us who played that game, there's a lot of interesting lore in that game. That game is pretty cringe in a lot of aspects, but there is some interesting stuff related to it. And there is one very specific point where it is mentioned that someone or a Daedra dies, like, and you facilitate it, ideally. And the process is referred to as like absolutely horrific. Like, it's just this, you're pulled out of existence into this horrible void. And it's just like, you don't have any concept of grounding. Nothing makes sense. And then you slowly, painfully reform. And then you're back because you're immortal. You're not ever killed.
Right.
But as a side effect of going through all of these horrible things, it takes a piece of your sanity along the way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think of all of these creatures like, well, okay, yes, they're immortal. They don't die, but like they're going through this transformative process of like, well, no, you don't die, but you're basically destroyed.
You can definitely suffer.
Yeah, there's a lot of suffering involved with going to the void and then being basically reformed to be brought back. And over this period of time, you just kind of like get squished back together. But as a side effect, you don't forget all of this. It's not like it's just lost.
Yeah.
You're immortal. So you do remember this pattern of these like horrible, this horrible torture of being basically essentially killed without being killed.
Rebodied.
Reformed.
Yeah. Like removed from your body, from a living body, and then rebodied again. And the in between is terrible. Right.
So it rips part of your sanity. So then you have this weird thing where it kind of sort of makes sense that it might be tied to Sheogorath, where, okay, well, this is, so much related to him. It seems almost like logical that it's like, well, okay, there's got to be some tie to Sheogorath and his insanity related to this, as these things are essentially reincarnated over and over and over again if they fall in combat, which they're prone to be in. So
right, we've talked about this before, how some of the Daedric princes seem more fundamental than others.
Yes,
like they're older beings that have some fundamental connection to the nature of the way the world works or Oblivion works.
And we even know that from like the Daedra thing of like, you have Meridia, you have Hermaeus Mora, some of these things, it's like some of these creatures, it's like, well, this is fundamental.
They're primordial. It's like the difference between the Olympian gods and the Titans. Like the Titans are fundamental powers of nature on some level. Time and Gaia, like Earth itself. They're like these fundamental things. And then the gods that came from them are lesser so. They're still tied to nature, but they're not as fundamental parts of nature. And
like a primary color and a secondary color.
Yeah.
They're all colors, but like a secondary color is made of two primary colors.
Right.
Like you can't have that prior to having the two primaries.
Right. So somebody like Sheogorath maybe is tied to just the madness of just the nature of the void and Oblivion made manifest in a Daedric prince.
And the only reason I thought that might be worth bringing up, other than the tie-in there, is that less recently now, but in one of the expansions to Elder Scrolls Online, which is the most current active Elder Scrolls game, really, in the Deadlands DLC, they kind of reference that again. So it's not a theory that's kind of or a piece of lore that's been forgotten. It's still active that there's this like really grueling process of, yes, we're immortal, but it's not great. We're immortal. We're not invincible.
Right.
And that's like this weird thing where it's like there are side effects to being immortal as well.
Yeah, they still suffer. And it hints at it in this document, because the very next section says common phrases in language. Among them are things like, may the chimes call you home, suggesting that rather than merely a metaphor, sound may play some role in the sequence of events that like rebodies them. And that idea that like, even among each other, they realize the terribleness of being sent back to the void. And so they want to like beckon the others to like, okay, come back to us, because it's going to be better off if you come back in your body than if you're stuck out there in the void. So follow the chimes home to a new body, like that kind of thing. Right.
Sure.
So that part's really pretty cool. And then it ends with any and all information regarding the Golden Saints and Dark Seducers, particularly relating to private customs and origins, should be brought to the attention of the author immediately. The greater the scope of our knowledge, the better our ability to understand these compelling creatures. So I love that there's a certain amount of vagueness here. Like, we don't know everything, but we at least know some of this stuff, we think. But, that's kind of how it goes when studying Daedric creatures. So
for sure, you're never going to get a clear-cut answer.
Yeah. So that's what we got today for the Golden Saints, or the Aureals, and of course, really interesting stuff. And I'm glad, Lotus, we took the time to do a whole episode about this rather than just
this
kind
one
of
was a
breezing through
little more involved. Like, again, we've kind of joked. Each episode, we've a lot of times had two things that are more fleshed out in the series, and then two things that are kind of almost like touched upon. It's like, yeah, this was in the game, or this was in a game.
This is a funny looking rat monster. All right, next one.
Here's a Daedrat. Here's 4 sentences on a Daedrat. It's okay. Right. But this one was a little more involved overall, where beyond devoting a full episode like we tried to just do, it seemed like you'd be either cutting it too short or you needed to do this, where it was like, well, there's a decent amount more to talk about related to these creatures specifically.
Right. And this one has a lot of stuff on it. And of course, like many of these things, it would be really cool to see more stuff about the Golden Saints and the Dark Seducers in the future, because they're not gone. They're still there. They're still working for Sheogorath.
They're very common as well in the most recent games. Even as so much as PvP in Elder Scrolls Online, which is not a focus. It's kind of almost a joke at this point that it's such an afterthought when it was so much at the forefront originally. When you get the Daedric artifact that drops on the field, which is Volendrung, which normally is not a Sheogorath based artifact.
Yeah.
The basis is Sheogorath has basically hijacked these artifacts and thrown them into the battlefield to just cause chaos. Volendrung being the one artifact that we've got currently floating around in Cyrodiil, which is the PvP zone. When you go to the random location that is dropped at, because it is like chosen out of one of several areas it could be in, and it's randomly chosen, it's actually guarded by Golden Saints. Like, you have to kill Golden Saints to get to the actual artifact Volendrung to be able to wield it on the battlefield. So again, yet another tie-in to Sheogorath. There's always this tie, and even when you see them somewhere else, it's just much more prevalent that they're tied to Sheogorath himself.
Right. So yeah, cool stuff. Well, this is fun. This is fun, Lotus. Anything else you guys
a good one
going on you want to share before we head out?
No, not really. We did a big deep dive. I think I had mentioned it last show that we did kind of like a big deep dive. It was me and Arcaneer. I think we rambled for like 2 hours. We obviously covered, the news like we normally do on UESP's Tales of Tamriel, but we kind of dove into the big hotness at the moment, which is still Starfield in a lot of regards.
Still Starfield.
It's still Starfield. They just mentioned that 10 million people have logged on to Starfield, which is wild. But we did a pretty deep dive because we've both been playing the game quite a bit. I really enjoy Starfield. But Bethesda games are, not to sound demeaning, but Bethesda games are Bethesda games. They have ties to each other. Like, if you don't like Bethesda game, like a Bethesda game, you might not like another one. Like, they have they're independent of each other, but they do have their connective tissues.
Similarities in the way that they do their stories, the way the characters work, the way the combat works, like a lot of that stuff.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And we went into a deep dive as to like all the stuff we've experienced with Starfield. I'm sitting about 30 hours. Arc is well over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, he's really lost control of his life with Starfield. But we went into a lot of the stuff where there are a lot of things that I think Starfield shows great promise on. I am very excited to see what they evolve these systems into for the Elder Scrolls 6.
So a continuation of our conversation about that, but you guys delve even deeper. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we went really like a very long time, as we tend to do on Tales. But yeah, I'm really excited to see. I mean, it's still a long ways off. We just recently also had all those Microsoft leaks, which are interesting. And some of them I feel people are not piecing together the parts properly anymore. Like one of the big ones is, why is there such a drop in expected revenue for the Elder Scrolls Online next year? And then when I looked at the chart, it's because the Elder Scrolls 6 was supposed to be out. So it's like,
right. So they thought some of the crowd would cannibalize some of the crowd. That
would make sense.
Yeah.
But now it's like, well, they're continuing on with what they're doing.
Right.
And stuff like that. But, yeah, no, just in general, that's really been like my big thing is all those leaks, reading into all of it. And, it's still a long way off, but I'm definitely excited for the Elder Scrolls 6 based on what we've seen from Starfield, because I feel the engine looks much better.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm so excited. I mean, I love Starfield, but holy moly, give me another main Elder Scrolls game and I will double love it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like
that's
are great, but oh my God, I'm so ready. It's been so long, and
as much as I love Fallout, it's not my Elder Scrolls. It's like, this is my I really love Fallout, but like
there's something about magic and melee weapons in that world that is, and like creepy skeletons in dungeons and like that kind of stuff. And I love ghouls. I love Fallout. I love Starfield. I love space pirates. All of that stuff is great. But there's something about that fantasy world and the deep lore in it
the most.
Yeah, that just resonates. I find. Like if those are 9s, that's a 10. You know, it's just like
right, and that's kind of it. It's been so long since we've seen a full release from Bethesda, and I'm really glad that a lot of people they've got this sci-fi fix.
Yeah. No, I'm glad they did what they needed to do. Now Absolutely. I'm ready for the next thing, but of course it's going to be a few years. So,
it's going to be a bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully not my prediction of 2035, but
yeah. But I guess we'll see. We'll just have to see.
We will see.
So
we will see.
Cool. Well, go check out Tales of Tamriel because obviously,
absolutely. If you're interested in our thoughts there.
Yeah. Awesome. And of course, I'm doing the Starfield Lorecast. We just recorded a new episode today with Zero Period Productions and Ken from Chat of Fallout 76, both creators with Bethesda content and their perspectives on Starfield, having worked on Bethesda content for a long time, both Elder Scrolls and Fallout. So that's a fun episode that should be up by the time you're hearing this, and also lots of other stuff. robotsradio.net for all my stuff. But thank you for being here, chat. Thank you for joining us. And Lotus, thanks for being here. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe out there in that crazy world of Tamriel, or in the Shivering Isles if you happen to be visiting that place. Be careful.
Also, I guess to close things out, one thing that is super weird and forever ties me to this series, it is my birthday when we're recording this, but it is also the same day that Microsoft officially announced that they acquired Bethesda.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's right.
It's very weird that ties in together.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday. Uh-oh. You just paused for a second. I was like, what happened? Like everything froze.
No,
you're back. Well, sort of. Oh, now you're back. Nope.
Yeah, now I'm back.
Okay, now you're back.
It's too much for the internet to comprehend.
I guess so.
Yeah, but it's funny because like it's such an arbitrary thing that like originally when this happened a couple of years ago now, I had a mix of happy birthdays mixed with hey, Bethesda's officially owned by Microsoft, because everybody knows how much I enjoy Bethesda games. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like I'm permanently intertwined with the acquisition of Bethesda.
Right. Man, our connection is being super weird. But well, happy birthday, Lotus. And yeah, I'm glad you got Bethesda Microsoft as a birthday present. I don't know. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. Yeah, we're heading out before the internet just crashes totally. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Twitter at robots_radio or Lotus of Doom at Lotus of Doom. Also, you can join us on the Robots Radio Discord channel. You can easily just search Robots Radio Discord on Google or check the description underneath the podcast. Also, this podcast is recorded live every week on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Robots Radio channels on Twitch, YouTube, and on Facebook. So just search Robots Radio on any of those platforms. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you while we record the show, or before or after. Either way, just come hang out with us. And if you're looking for more information about my shows and the shows on the Robots Radio Network, go to robotsradio.net for all the information about all the shows on the network, including the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where I help both new and existing podcasters to grow their shows, build their audiences, and create the best podcast they possibly can. All of that at robotsradio.net. We'll see you next time.